The Dragon Quest III HD2 Remake is finally out after 3 years of waiting, and it doesn't disappoint for the most part. This is going to be my first thought on the game, and I will eventually make a full review of it, although that will probably be in the original version. First of all, this game looks and sounds great, but that is not news for anybody that was waiting for this game. We all knew it was going to be this way. What we didn't know from the start was the fact they were going to add an extra class in the game, the Monster Wrangler. It seems to be very good for early game, but not a class worth turning into, at least that's what I think. I assumed that this class was going to call monsters into battle to fight alongside you, similar to how you could in other games, but this class simply gains different abilities depending on what monsters you send over to the monster arena. I changed my thief into one of these guys, but then later on changed him into a fighter because I actually wanted him to be useful. Though looking at other people's footage of the game, it does seem like he gets better abilities later on. Abilities are a new thing to this game, but not to the series as a whole. Abilities are basically spells without actually being spells. This means they can work even if you've been hit by an anti-magic spell. However, abilities that have a spell counterpart usually aren't as effective as the spell itself. Because of this change, every class now gains MP when leveling up, whereas beforehand, only classes that learn spells could. Important scenes are now voice acted, which is a nice touch, and makes the game more in line with how DQ games have been handling dialogue for a while now. One thing that was removed from this game, which I don't understand why it was removed, was the ability to target your own party. In the original, this was a way to knock your party out of confusion. Now, there is still a way to do that in game, and that's with the Goof Off's ability, Sobering Slap. So the mechanic is still in the game, just not in the same way as before. This also means that if you don't have a Goof Off, then you just can't do it, so it is limiting in that way. Unless I'm just blind and didn't notice that you still can target your own party. If you can, please tell me how, because I don't see how. Please, am I dumb? Am I stupid? Is it right there in front of me and I don't see it? Let me know in the comments. There are now different difficulty options to be selected, which you can change at any point, kind of like you could in the Elder Scrolls series. I played on the hardest option, Draconian Quest, for a good while, but after I faced off with the Crown Thief, I couldn't play like that anymore. It was just too much, which is interesting since the first few hours I felt were too easy, in fact. But then it just dive bombed into impossibility. But then again, my party was not a strategically picked one. I wanted to make my fellow Circle of Jerks members in-game. Don't ask why AJ is a thief, that's purely a coincidence. Although he did later on become a furry, so maybe that wasn't a coincidence. He also can summon wolves, which is a funny coincidence. I didn't know he was going to be able to do that as a monster wrangler. Weapons you have equipped will now be reflected on your person in battle, which is a very small detail, but it does help you remember what weapon you have equipped without the need to check. Having multiple weapons in your inventory is a legitimate strategy in this game, considering that switching out your equipment is a free action in this game. It's also a legitimate strategy because different weapons have different properties, like being able to hit multiple enemies in a group, being able to hit all the enemies regardless of grouping, or being able to cast a spell when used as an item. A change that I do not care for is how evac and zoom now work. If I'm deep into a cave and need to restock on items or go heal and I'm running out of MP, what do? Well, I can just simply evac and then zoom to any town I want. As a matter of fact, I don't even need to evac in this game because zoom works indoors now. Before, a situation like this was a legitimate problem that needed the player to plan ahead or know how to roll with the punches to deal with. Now you simply have a get out of jail free card at all times. Being able to fast travel to towns was pretty easy enough, it really didn't need to be made even easier. It's kind of like how Oblivion messed up fast travel in the Elder Scrolls series. It's basically like that. Probably not as bad though. Getting wiped out is also no longer a problem, as you now have a few options to continue. You have the classic option of starting from the last church you saved at while losing half of your money. However, this option is now completely useless because there's other options that are just way better. You can now start from the last autosave that you had, which just means the last battle that you concluded. And when you're fighting a boss, you now have the option to rematch him right off the bat. On the one hand, I do appreciate the streamlining when it comes to bosses because it just saves time on reloading the save and walking back to him. But on the other, wiping out has literally no consequences now. It is simply a very minor setback, and I mean very minor. There is little reason to use the bank in this game now. Before, it was a way to make sure that you wouldn't lose all your money if you were gaming over too often. But now, you're just never gonna lose money. Draconian Quest really should have removed these other options and stuck with the original way it worked. Because again, it can be as hard as it wants to be, but it's still not hard because you just don't lose money or anything. The just don't use it argument is sure to pop up, but tell me why I shouldn't use this option every single time now, other than a self-imposed challenge. Turn off the objective markers and minimaps, please. I was having fun at first in the first couple of hours, but as the game progressed, I start to feel a little less engaged. With the current objective marked on your map, there really is no reason to use your brain at all, just go and walk towards the objective marker. When I first played the Game Boy Color version of the game, I did a lot of things, quote, out of order. I made it all the way to Baharata for the Black Pepper, before realizing that I needed to fight Robin Hood before he would show up in Kidnapper's Cave. There is something special about this game letting you go off and have your adventure in the order that you want. And that's still the case for this version of the game, but not if you're following the objective markers to the T. It can also make you miss out on things that you otherwise wouldn't have. I went straight to the pyramid instead of Ibis, which you are supposed to get information on it. I thought that maybe the game was changed because I remember talking to some ruler somewhere about the pyramid being cursed before ever going there, but here I was told to go there right after beating Robin Hood. So I just assumed that that information was relocated. Then when I did eventually go to Ibis, I missed the second part of the town with said ruler, again thinking that maybe that was just simply removed from the game. Now, that is on me for not remembering that it was a second section of the town, but new players won't even know about Ibis in the first place. So yeah, go into the settings and turn these things off. Also, turn off the mini-map. It's just, you already have a map in your inventory. It just makes things too easy. You know, you don't need it. I haven't beaten the game yet, although I am relatively close to beating it now, actually. But I am enjoying myself quite a bit. It's a shame that this game was surrounded in controversy earlier this year, because of the type A and B thing. Worst part about it is that there is still sex-based limitations in game like there was in the original. I do believe that personalities lost their gender exclusivity, but you're still referred to as a queen when you return the crown if you are a girl. You still can't get puffed if you are a girl. The game tells you that type A is the hero and type B is the heroine. Yeah, so I really see no point in this change other to satisfy hypothetical people that wouldn't have even played this game in the first place, that also wouldn't be happy with these changes because they really are just superficial changes and not things that really are actual changes in the first place. Like, yeah, it doesn't call the man a man or the woman a woman, but I mean, you still get called a woman in other places, basically. But I'm sure they will claim that they still like these changes, even though they really shouldn't, just because it makes people that they dislike very, very mad online, and that makes them very, very happy in the pants, probably. Personally, I am more offended that I can't make AJ black, which would be a very simple thing to add. It's basically the same thing as the hair color changer, but just with skin color, but instead of that, they decided to prioritize just not calling a man or a woman for some reason, even though everything else in the game indicates to that. Also, the troll's lips are recolored and they just look terrible. Why did you recolor the lips? I mean, I know why you did it, but no, you didn't need to. It's stupid. This is probably the worst change in the game artistically for me. This is the one I hate the most. It just does not look good. I know it was changed in Dragon Quest Monsters 3 prior to this. That doesn't make it better. I don't know why people bring that up as like a counter, like, oh, it was changed somewhere else first. It's like, yeah, nobody played that game except for me. If you're planning on getting this game, maybe wait for a price drop, since it is pretty pricey considering this game is from '88. Though, without a doubt, this is the best RPG on the NES, and this remake makes the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters look very cheap by comparison. I'm honestly surprised those games didn't get the same treatment as this one.